My next question, I suppose, relates also to your statement about strongest possible actions. Do you consider new coal mines like the Carmichael coal mine and the export of that coal overseas? Do you see preventing those kind of new coal mines from going ahead as the strongest possible action on climate change?
Senator, just before Dr. Reichelt talks, I just wanted to clarify something that I think Senator Waters has also made this point, and it's just factually incorrect, which is the existing Reef 2050 plan. The first key challenge that it talks about is on climate change, and it talks explicitly about actions under the Paris Agreement as well as adaptation. And it does that for a couple of pages, laying out a number of the items that Senator Waters talked about with respect to the emissions reduction fund, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear that it is covered in the existing plan.
It's covered in it, but you don't have, as you've rightly pointed out, you don't have any say in whether the Paris Agreement gets implemented. That's my point. So, Dr. Reichelt, can I ask you again then, do you believe that, you use the word strongest possible actions to prevent increased emissions, do you believe that preventing the opening up of new coal mines like the Carmichael mine, potentially the biggest coal mine in the world, is strongest possible actions on global warming?
Senator, this is a very common question that I get, and as I'm here as representing the Marine Park Authority that manages the marine park, we've made, I think, very clear over several cycles of the Outlook report where the risks lie, including maps of impacts that run out to 2050 in the Outlook reports. The specifics of the impacts of a mining operation on the marine park are something we looked at through the lens of our legislation. So to comment on a specific project isn't something that our Marine Park Authority has responsibility for. What we do...
Sorry, just on this, can I just clarify, is this more outcome, are we now straying away from the Great Barrier Reef into outcome 2 possibly? Or outcome 4? Outcome 2.
Dr. Reichelt, my question was in relation to your opening statement, where there could have been a personal view, so feel free to clarify that if that was a personal view, strongest possible action on climate, on reducing emissions. Could you clarify that for me, please? Do you personally believe that the opening up of new coal mines is counter to taking the strongest possible
Senator
action?
Whish-wilson, I think asking personal opinions is definitely out of order.
No, it's not out of order, Chair. I've sought advice from the Secretariat. It's not out of order. You have already expressed a personal opinion here today. Could I ask you again, do you believe that opening up of one of the world's biggest coal mines is counter to taking the strongest possible actions on climate change?
Well, Dr. Reichelt can, of course, respond to Senator Whish-wilson, but I think the opening statement was clear in relation to the importance of action on climate change. I'm sure you understand, despite the way in which you litigate the arguments here, that you understand that climate change is addressed as a global response. That's why it's the work through the Paris Agreement that's important. It's the commitments that Australia gives via the Paris Agreement that's important. It's commitments that India gives via the Paris Agreement that are important. It's the commitments collectively that nations give, and then how they give effect to those. And Australia will meet its commitments in relation to the Paris Agreement. And that's how we give strong effect to action on climate change, is meeting our commitments. But in terms of Dr. Reichelt's opening statement, he of course can deal with the content of that.
Thanks. Senator, when I'm speaking in the committee, I'm giving my expert view, and as it relates to the agency that I'm here to represent in estimates. So I tend, my personal views are ones that are coloured by expertise base and credibility. So I don't want to speculate. I don't want to I have a feeling about something. I tend to talk in reality. And if I could just remind you...
Experts have been quite happy to provide personal opinions on this issue.
Could I just repeat my last statement?
And Senator Whish-wilson, so just to be clear, Standing Order 16, you are not required to give evidence or a matter of opinion on government policy.
I'm not asking for a matter of opinion on public policy.
Well,
I've clarified that, Chair. It seems like everybody here is is keen for Dr Reichelt not to answer this question.
Senator Whish-Wilson, that is absolutely not true. That is absolutely not true. Just because you don't necessarily like the way he's answering the question doesn't mean that
he hasn't answered the question, and I'm entitled to a line of questioning, Chair, on
Senator Whish-Wilson,
very key parts of his
Senator
statement.
Whish-Wilson, please do not keep talking over me.
I could
I've
say
just
the same
said,
thing
as
to
long
you,
as
Chair. I've got the question.
really, Senator Whish-Wilson, please. It's just the first
I've got the
morning
questions.
investments. You may ask a question. I'm just clarifying Standing Order 16, privileges resolution on what Dr Reichelt is and is not obliged to do. So as long as you are not asking him a matter of opinion on government policy, please continue.
I understood the question,
Thank you.
Senators and Madam Chair, the authority's expertise and value to the Australian public and the reefs of the Great Barrier Reef is that we do everything we can to protect the long-term future of the Barrier Reef. A very clear statement from the authority's point of view is that climate change impacts on corals are predicted to worsen and critically affect the survival of reefs globally without the strongest possible efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I went further this morning and said decisive action on reducing the levels of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is essential if we want to ensure the survival of the Great Barrier Reef and leave a legacy of environmental stewardship for future generations. That's my strongest advice to the globe, to those who attend conference of parties, to the Australian public, and I stand by these comments.
We're at an important point in history, Dr Reichelt, and experts of your eminence, your views matter on this debate, and I'm giving you the chance to say whether you think opening one of the world's biggest coal mines is going to be counter to what you've just told us then.
Senator Whish-Wilson,
I could repeat that.
Minister, please.
I mean, Dr Reichelt could repeat his